Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show, brought to you by Over the Bar. We're back for the fantasy football edition. As you can see, Rune has joined me below. We're glad to be back as well this weekend. Rune, how have you been? It's been a few weeks, and obviously the international break in between. How's things been on your end?
Yeah, I've been good. I'm looking forward to the weekend. The international break wasn't particularly successful from a Danish perspective. The San Marino game, 2-1 win, was pretty heavily criticized here in Denmark. So yeah, not the most optimal international break. I prefer Bundesliga football over the weekend.
Yes, lots of exciting games to come. Big one tonight as well, which I'm sure we'll allude to as we go on during the show. But without further delay, we all know what you're here for. So get your comments ready, get your questions in. We'll answer as many as we can do live. I think there might be one or two that came in beforehand, so I'll see if we can get to that as well. But without further delay, I'll just bring up the three picks for Rune from a defensive point of view, so you can see that going below screen right now. So Rune, over to yourself, and we can crack on with your defenders, starting with your budget to pick for this week.
Yeah, starting off with Anthony Cassi from Mainz, who I think has been one of the better players for a pretty poor Mainz side this season. I do think they've improved lately, and they now faced Bochum in a must-win game. And of course, Cassi plays in an attacking wing-back role, and he's already scored 2 goals this season. So yeah, a pretty dangerous defender and a potential differential 0% ownership too. And my mid-price pick is David Raum, who is on sale this week and who's been in outstanding form this season, coming off a man of the match performance in the Champions League, in which he scored 2. So has a great matchup against Köln at home as well. The only potential downside is that his minutes may be limited, given the schedule and the fact that Leipzig have a lot of games to play. But I feel pretty confident he'll start. I think it would be a weird signal to send from Rose's side to bench him after the performance he delivered in the Champions League. And then finally, my premium pick is Masraoui, who could be one of the top defenders this week if he starts with Bayern playing at home against Darmstadt. The thing is that Masraoui only just returned from an injury to play against Galatasaray in the Champions League. So there's a slight doubt about him as to whether he will start or not. The thing is also that Konrad Laimer may be called upon in midfield with Leon Goretzka out, and that increases Masraoui's chances of starting. Tuchel doesn't have a lot of players to consider, given the fact that Bayern have a quite thin squad. So that speaks for him starting. But I mean, it's still a little up in the air. So I would wait for the press conference. But if we get an indication that Masraoui will start, I think he's a really good shout, especially because of his low ownership and Bayern's really favorable matchup.
Absolutely, yeah. Some really good picks in there for this weekend for sure. We will just crack on as we go along. No questions in the comments just yet. Obviously, everyone's still waking up. No, I'm still feeling the tiredness creep out of me on this Friday morning. So any questions that come in, we'll try and get to them as we go along. So we shall now bring up our midfielders for this week, starting with budget, and we'll be starting with a player that has definitely caught the eye in the last few games. So, Rune, I'll let you explain your reasonings for including Gruder from Mainz as your budget pick for this week from a midfielder point of view.
Yeah, I think he's shown this season that he's one of the most exciting prospects in German football, and he's kind of used the difficulties that Mainz have had. He's taken advantage of their problems to get some more playing time and really make the most of the chances he's got in the starting lineup. And of course, he played very well against Bayern last week and was actually unlucky not to score. He did set up their goal. So I think for the price, it's difficult to find someone better than Koda at the moment. A really good enabler, and also I think Mainz have a good matchup against Bochum. So doesn't get much better for the price, I think. And then moving on to an option from Bochum, who's more expensive, but who's more established as well. Stöger, who has already scored 73 points this season, and that's really impressive, especially considering he's playing for Bochum, who are in the bottom end of the table, of course. And he's basically just the key player in the middle of the park, the kind of player that you love to have in your fantasy side because he's so involved. He's on all set pieces and usually does well even when they lose. And in addition to that, Bochum have a really good run of games now. Mainz is an okay matchup at home, and then they have Darmstadt and Köln and Heidenheim after that. So a player that you could keep if you choose to invest in him. And then my premium pick is Frank Honorat. I kind of wanted to mention a differential to the more obvious premium picks in midfield this week. And Honorat has averaged 11 points per game in his last 3 matches. And of course, Gladbach have a very favorable matchup too against a leaky Heidenheim team at home. So I think he's a great differential this week.
Exactly that. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Few questions that have come in then, so we'll come straight to those. First one in from regular viewer and friend of the show, Jeff. Jeff has asked, any reason to deviate from the template trio of Fonzie Davis, Jeremy Frimpong, or Grimaldo? Well, Grimaldo was busy last night, wasn't he? Getting goals and assists yet again. Wow, how his season is going. Generally speaking, I would say I will not be deviating myself. I don't think. Rune, would you suggest Jeff moves away from those 3 players?
No, I wouldn't recommend doing that. What you could do would be to get Raum in as a 4th defender, maybe, because I also really like Leipzig's matchup. But selling one of those 3 would be too big of a risk for me.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And then another comment that's come in from Tim. Hope you're doing well, Tim, and enjoying the show. Any other premium midfielders for yourself, Rune? I'm sure there's plenty of premium midfielders. There's lots to go around and quite a lot of hard picks. But if you had to name 1 or 2, Rune, who are you going to go for Tim?
Yeah, the usual suspects. I actually feel it's quite difficult to choose between the midfielders this season because there are just so many good options. Julian Brandt should play after missing Dortmund's Champions League game. He's always a good option. And then we have Wirtz and Hoffmann from Leverkusen. Pretty difficult to fit them both in, perhaps. So who to pick? Wirtz was outstanding last night. We'll see if his minutes will get limited again. And then we have Xavi Simons, of course, who also had a really good game in the Champions League. But he's also a rotation risk, and Jamal Musiala as well. So a lot of really, really good premium options. But there are a few things to consider this week because most of them have been involved in European games in midweek, and that may decrease their chances of starting or playing the full game. So that's also a big factor this week.
What about last night's hat-trick hero, Rune, in Vincenzo Grifo as well, just starting to hit his straps right now, maybe starting to look like a tastier fantasy option, but obviously, it might depend on the matchups on the weekend as well, because, not so easy fixture for Freiburg this weekend, is there? Another question in from Jeff. We'll come to this before we move on. Just going back to midfielders, any word on Rierson's availability for this weekend, Rune? What are the pressers saying?
I think he is expected to play from how it looks now, but let's wait and see. He was ill, so in the Champions League against Newcastle, so shouldn't take too long for him to return. So at the moment, it looks like he'll play.
Excellent. And there was a question asked prior to the show going live from CBK11 on X, formerly known as Twitter. Who are the top 4 midfielders this week, regardless of price? Well, Rune, I think you pretty much named all of them. Obviously, we've got Florian Wirtz, we've got Hoffman, who might be difficult to get into your team, Xavi Simons, and well, yeah, Julian Brandt, yeah. Musiala, they could be your 4, they could be your 5. Yeah, plenty of options. I'm guessing it's probably been a while since you've had Chris Führich in your team, Rune, as a kind of an option. His form hasn't dipped, but there are probably just better options out there right now, especially with matchups.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would rather invest in one of the premium midfielders, and if I needed a cheaper option or budget option, I think I would actually just get Groda this week. If I wanted, for example, to get Raum in defense and wanted to save some money on one of our midfielders, I think Groda would be a pretty obvious budget enabler in midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question in here from Timothy C22. Thanks for your comment and question. Thoughts on Anthony Rouault from Stuttgart, 7.3 mil, who's been starting the last 3 games. Obviously, provided a very delightful assist for Guirassy for Stuttgart's opener last weekend, and yeah, has settled in really nicely. Got ahead of Stenzel. And as Mark alluded to, a player that Stuttgart signed a little bit under the kind of radar. So what have your thoughts been on him so far, Rune? Are you seeing potential in him from a fantasy point of view, at least?
Yeah, had a pretty good game last time out, but the thing is in defense, as Jeff mentioned earlier, we have Davis, Frimpong, and Grimaldo, who's like the holy trinity at the back, and then I think he's maybe a bit too expensive for what I expect from him. As far as I remember, he's a natural center back. So I have to say I don't know that much about him. So I think his price tag is quite high if you only want him to start on the bench and to come in if one of the premium options don't deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, he is a natural centre half. Can't get in at the moment from a centre half point of view, unless maybe Stuttgart go to those back 3 methods with Dan, Axel, Zagadou, and Vladimir Anton taking the 2 places for now. Great stuff. Some really good questions in there. Thank you all for that. Really appreciate it. Obviously, just before we move on to our strikers, please do smash a like on the video for our continued coverage of Bundesliga fantasy footy. Again, we welcome all comments and questions, and please do subscribe to the channel. It is really appreciated. So we shall move on to the final section and the final positionings of the show, which is, of course, the forwards. So yeah, Rune, we'll let you crack on with your reasonings for your 3 picks.
Yeah, 3 potential Guirassy replacements here in different price categories. The first one is Dennis Undau, who's also his replacement in the Stuttgart team while he's out injured. And Undau, I think, has looked really promising. He's only been a substitute so far, but has scored 3 goals in 5 games, which is quite impressive given the low amount of minutes he's got. And he's now in line for his first start in Guirassy's absence. So a pretty good direct replacement if you want a cheaper option up front. And then my mid-price pick is Jonas Wind, who has been one of the most clinical strikers in the Bundesliga so far this season. And he'll come up against a very vulnerable Augsburg defense under new coach Jes Torup. They did win last week against Heidenheim, but they also showed some weaknesses, especially at the back. So could be a good game for Wind to continue his good form. And then my premium pick is Leroy Sané, who I feel is one of the most obvious replacements for Guirassy if you want a player in the same sort of price category. He's been one of Bayern's best players this season, of course, and plays at home against Darmstadt. And as I talked about earlier, Tuchel could make a few changes, but I think it would be surprising to see Sané on the bench, especially since Gnabry isn't ready to start yet, and Bayern have a pretty thin squad. So with the form Sané is in, I expect and assume that he'll play. So I think he's probably one of the players to target if you wanted a replacement for Guirassy in the same price category. Otherwise, you could get Openda from Leipzig, who also have a pretty good game. But his minutes could be limited as well as many other players this week. So yeah, for me, it's pretty much between Sané and Openda in terms of premium picks to replace Guirassy with.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good point there. Is it maybe worth doubling up on Bayern this weekend with their matchup? It will be trickier and trickier, fantasy football players alike, to get these balances right after the constant now going of the European competitions. Great midweek for our Bundesliga teams, 6 wins out of 7, and obviously the only team not to win was Union, who ran Napoli really close, only in a 1-0 loss. So, that's great. Really loving that. Some serious amount of goals scored as well, which is fantastic. We've got one more question in, 2 more questions in from Tim. So we'll come to those. We've only been going for a shorter time period. So if you do have questions, pop them in right now. And we do have time still to come to them. So don't be shy. No question is stupid. I've asked Rune many stupid questions over my time of knowing him. So yeah, please do get them in whilst you can. First from Tim, then we've got is Hoffman, Wirtz, Musiala, or Honorat. I'm presuming, Tim, you're wanting to choose one from those 4. So not the easiest question there. Rune, I mean, obviously the first 3 are liable to potential shorter minutes, as you've already alluded to. I'm guessing if we had to take, from a point scoring point of view, we'd probably take Honorat out of that, and then maybe it's out of Wirtz or Musiala, maybe Musiala from the matchup point of view.
Yeah, I think what speaks for Hoffman is that he didn't play last night. As far as I remember, he was on the bench for the full game, so that suggests that he will play a lot of minutes this weekend. So yeah, I think actually that makes me lean slightly towards Hoffman if you compare him and Wirtz, and then Musiala, definitely want him this week against Darmstadt at home. Would probably go with Musiala of those 3 because I just feel he's so essential. It could be one of those games where Bayern just keep scoring goals, and then you wouldn't want to go without him. But really difficult, all amazing options.
Yeah, agreed. Last question from Tim, potential star players this weekend. From a forwards point of view, it's always tricky, isn't it? Going away from Harry Kane, especially in a game like this as well, actually. Even Sane could be a good shout, as you say, bringing him in. So honestly, that will just be a really tricky, what I presume is going to be a Bayern player. It will be a Bayern player for me. Bruno, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think up front Kane is the natural captain choice. But if you want to go with a differential captain pick, then Sané would be my alternative. And in midfield, I would probably leaning towards Musiala. Not sure about defense. I don't think Davies is as much. He's playing in a more defensive role, I feel, under Tuchel compared to under Nagelsmann, and we just see Grimaldo and Frimpong hauling every week and basically outscoring Davies for the most match days this season. So I would probably go with either Grimaldo or Frimpong at the back. Frimpong was rested last night too, so he should be fresh to play, and also, of course, he had a really, really good game last week too. So maybe Frimpong at the back.
Yeah, good stuff. another one in from Jeff. Thoughts on any other Wolfsburg assets with value the next few match days versus Augsburg, Bremen, and Gladbach? Yeah, Wolfsburg are a strange one, haven't they, Bruno? They've kind of gone under the radar, as has Jonas Wind, because if we hadn't had so many other goal scorers, we'd be lauding him week in, week out, wouldn't we? And it's kind of unfair that he's gone under the radar because he has played so well. Any other picks from a Wolfsburg point of view that you're liking so far this season?
I feel Joachim Mele is quite interesting at the back, but he's not been delivering the kind of attacking performances that we've seen from him in the past, especially for Denmark. He hasn't been that productive in terms of picking up points, so that's a bit off-putting, I feel. But he definitely has the potential. He is known as he's a really marauding fullback who likes to get involved offensively, so could be a good differential. And then maybe Love Romaya in midfield. I feel he's quite expensive, but he's a player we know has that X factor. He's capable of doing special stuff on the pitch. So if he gets into a good streak, then it could be a good differential as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Question in here as well from Lawrence. So, Lawrence, thank you very much for your question. Thoughts on a punt for a Dortmund forward, Füllkrug, for example? Interesting question there from Lawrence. Certainly been, getting a couple of goals, Rune, of late. Feels like a definite punt and a risky one for this weekend in particular. With the harder matchup as well, going away to Frankfurt, despite Dortmund's form is perfectly fine. It's really good, as me and Mark were alluding to last night on the prediction show. Getting away through and winning big games, winning away to Newcastle is a really big achievement for them and really important from a Champions League point of view. But they're not firing on all cylinders from a goal scoring point of view, are they? So, what are your thoughts on Lawrence's question?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Rory. I think just think there are better options up front at the moment because we only have those 3 spots. So too much of a risk for me, especially given their quite tough matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Frankfurt as well, just starting to find their feet this season as well, scoring 6 last night and 5 in the last 2 Bundesliga games. So yeah, they are starting to look forwards as well. Frankfurt. Last question that we've got in the comments right now. For yourself, Rune, updates on Julian Brandt. Obviously heard that he had a muscle injury. What were the latest with Brandt and possibly including him? Obviously, we've already mentioned him, so pretty confident that he'll be making a return this weekend.
Yeah, that's what's been reported in German media as well, that he should be ready to return. And of course, they also have the Sunday game, which gives him another day to get up to full speed. So I assume he'll play.
Yeah, absolutely. A conundrum question coming from Tim. Wind and Hoffman versus Openda and Musiala. I think I'm banking on the latter one myself. Rune, who would you pick out of those 2 combinations?
Yeah, slightly. I'll go for the latter one, but it's difficult because all 4 players are looking good this week.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. So yeah, thank you everyone that submitted questions prior to the show, during the show. Really excellent stuff as per usual. Thank you to Rune, who has provided the goods as per usual as well. Promises to be a really enticing weekend of Bundesliga action, starting this evening with the basement battle. Really big game between Bochum and Mainz. I think we'll probably be popping a poll on our Twitter just to see what everyone's thoughts are on the outcome of that game. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure to jump over onto another video that we did last night, myself and Mark, the prediction show. Have your thoughts on it as to what happens this weekend and everything else that is going on the channel, of course, as well. Another quick reminder to give this video a like, please. Thumbs up would be really, really appreciated. Any comments that come in subsequently, myself and Rune, as per usual, will try and come to them during the course of the day. And of course, press that red button, subscribe, so you get automatic updates as to whenever these brilliant shows are coming your way. So thank you very much to everyone, and we'll see you next time. Cheers all.
Bye.